Hinduism. It began with invaders coming down to India called the Aryan invaders from around Russia. They introduced a sacrificial system known as Brahmanism or Vedism. They talked the Sanskrit language. They mixed in, as they came down, all sorts of pagan religions into one. Through the ages, there were many changes in this religion. They would raise up some gods, give promotions, and demote, give pink slips, demote others. Very much a people who are linked to the history of India. In fact, Hinduism just means the ism of India. Hindi means India. The Hindu scriptures, as they're called, are written over 2,000 years ago, and there are many of them. And just so you have some background, one's called the Sruti, which means what is heard. These are supposed to be spoken truths. The other's called the Smriti, which is what is remembered. The Vedas, which means wisdom or knowledge. And then there are the Upanishads. If you hear these words, these are teachings on doctrines. The most famous one's called the Rig Veda, and that's hymns to various Hindu gods. The most famous sacred book of Hinduism is called the Bhagavad Gita, which means the Song of the Lord. Well, that sounds okay as it is. Sounds like the Song of Solomon. But what it is a dialogue between the god Krishna and the warrior Arjuna, who decides to serve Vishnu, and thus he kills his relatives. That's what that's about. Three main children of Hinduism in the world: Jainism, Buddhism, and Sikhism. Jainism, started by a man named Mahavira in the 6th century. He wandered through India naked 12 years, and that started this religion. Then there was Buddhism. He was born about 560, named Siddhartha. He was a rich man, became a beggar, sat under a fig tree. He said he reached nirvana. He was enlightened, so he was called the Enlightened One, which in that language is the Buddha. Started a religion, a form of Hinduism. Buddhism didn't do well in India, but it did very well in the Orient, China, and all that, where you see all sorts of these overweight statues. That's Buddha. And the other one, the third child of Hinduism, is called Sikhism, started by a man named Nanak of India, born in the 15th century A.D., sought to combine Hinduism with Islam, and you have the Sikhs. Now there are some grandchildren of Hinduism. Zen Buddhism. From China and Japan, a Buddhism developed centered on meditation. Zen means meditation. When you hear Zen Buddhism, that's what it means. Then there's the Divine Light Mission, Guru Maharishi Ji, who is presented in our generation as the perfect master. There's yoga and all the yoga disciplines, which are one of the ways in Hinduism to obtain union with the universal Brahma. Then there's Hare Krishna, your Krishna consciousness, which I'll mention about Krishna coming up. Then there is the New Age movement. It's the newest form of this. Whenever anybody talks about these terms, blending in one with the universe, this is it. This is coming from all that. New Age, a blending of the occult and particularly Eastern Hindu concepts. There is TM, Transcendental Meditation, started by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who was born in 1910 in India. 1958, he founded this thing. He came to America to spread this faith. Several million people in the United States and around the world have been taught the Maharishi's meditation techniques. TM is actually a Hindu meditation technique grounded in ancient paganism. Which brings me back to that movie. So the movie was seen by all around America and around the world. It was the Beatles riding the waves of Beatlemania. Their first film was A Hard Day's Night. It was a success. So there had to be a follow-up to cash in on it. So the writers came up with a plot that was kind of silly, sounded like fun, and that is that Ringo would have a ring on his finger, but there'd be a band of people who were out to get the ring from Ringo. It'd be a sacred ring. The leader of that group to pursue the ring would be a Hindu priest who needed to perform a Hindu ritual. It's a silly plot, but it gave it a Hindu flavor, so they brought in some Hindu music, some sitars on the set. While on the set, George Harrison saw a sitar, which is the central musical instrument of India, and through that he got into that, and then he started getting into Eastern religions. Soon he was putting Indian music in his songs, and I'm not speaking about music tonight, but then the other Beatles got into it. 1966, John Lennon wrote, he took the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and he put it into a song called Tomorrow Never Knows. It went, turn off your mind, relax, and float downstream. He's made a pilgrimage to India to see Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the founder of this movement, to sit at his feet. Famous pictures of him, Mia Farrow, Donovan, Mick Jagger, Brian Jones, Mike Love of the Beach Boys, all sitting around this guru. And that affected, with flowers, that affected an entire generation. That image was published all over the world. George Harrison said, we're all one, 1967. Paul McCartney, who would write the song Fool on the Hill, which is about the Maharishi, he said the great thing about people like him and Christ is that they've got out of the reincarnation cycle. So other leaders of the counterculture began being drawn into it. The Moody Blues, The Who was interested by Meher Baba, who led him to write Tommy, influenced by that. The Beatles soon grew disillusioned with the Maharishi, and they claimed their teacher was caught up with worldliness. He was pumping them for financial contributions to be put into a Swiss bank account, and he was making plays for the women celebrities who came on the pilgrimage. Hinduism was being joined to drugs. People in white robes and shaven heads started appearing in airports chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. More cultural leaders started getting into it. The Grateful Dead, Big Brother, the whole Jefferson Airplane. Krishna consciousness movement began particularly took hold in the 70s. George Harrison was still into it. He wrote a song as a worship to the Hindu gods. It was called My Sweet Lord. Sounds like, believers are listening to this saying, wow, that sounds like Jesus. It wasn't. It was an attempt to get radio listeners to chant the mantra to the Hindu gods. He even said, I did the voices to sing hallelujah at first, and then I changed it to Hare Krishna so that people would be chanting the chants before they knew what was going on. At his concerts, he tried to get his audience to chant Hare Krishna for just like 30 minutes straight. Now, don't get mad at George Harrison, just pray for him, But the thing is, then came a fallout, a generation that was seeking something better than materialism. They found themselves empty in the 70s without the drugs didn't work, and they didn't find it in yoga. The drugs didn't work, and they didn't find it in yoga. They didn't find it in all the Eastern things. Kind of went flat. The Beach Boys went on tour with Maharishi. They found that their fans stayed away. Lennon and McCartney denounced their former gurus. Peter Townsend saw his life falling apart. But the main effect wasn't then. What happened was this. The main effect was immeasurable, because that generation, the baby boomers, who are now getting into running everything in this culture now, they were the ones who were affected by these ideas or just by these images. And so more and more of modern culture has this in it. Tenets of Hinduism. For instance, it's all relative. If it's good for you, fine. That is totally Eastern. Not that you can't say that in a Western country, but the fact is, that whole idea, well, if it's good for you, your mantra, your karma. People saw it as spiritual. A lot of people who grew up and they saw their churches as shallow, or the synagogues as shallow, they wanted something deeper, and they were right. There was something shallow about much of religion was dead. But that has nothing to do with the Lord. Some wanted harmony. Somebody, there's an idea that, well, it's like it's taking democracy and it's putting into a religion. All ideas are created equal. No, they are not. They are not, if it works for you. I would agree with much of these people in rejecting much of Western culture and much of dead Christianity. But that has nothing to do with Jesus. Jesus is not into dead religion or into materialism. He would reject it as well. So it's entered into our language. People say, well, all roads lead to God. Good karma, bad karma. We're all part of God. That's all. This is all Hindu. We're all to be one with God, the cosmic consciousness. We're to be in touch with the universe. What is reality anyway? In another lifetime, I would be... Where's that from? In another lifetime, channelers, Shirley MacLaine, reincarnation, all that is Hindu at home. So what is the root of all this? Hinduism, as I told you, means the religion of the people of India. Hinduism is all-embracing. It sees all religions it sees the same in all religions. You might be sharing, sometimes believers are sharing salvation with someone who's into Eastern religion, and it seems like they're really agreeing with you on everything, but they're not. They're saying, oh yeah, sure, we accept Jesus. We accept Jesus. That's just part of the whole mystery of Hinduism. That's part of the mystery of the universe, that he's just one of the incarnations of God. And you think that you're making points, not necessarily. Hinduism also, it says in it says in the Bible, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Hinduism believes in a three-in-one God called the Brahman, or made up of three parts. The Brahma, the creator, the all-divine, Vishnu, which is the preserver, and Shiva, the destroyer. But even this triad, this quote trinity, is questionable, because in some traditions, Vishnu is a minor god. In other ones, they have other gods. It depends where you go, because they've got all sorts of gods. In turn to Romans 1. Romans 1, where Paul speaks of the ancient religions of his day, and he describes it in this way. Verse 22. Professing to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the incorruptible God for an image in the form of corruptible man, in the form of corruptible birds, four-footed creatures, crawling animals. Therefore God gave them over to the lust of their heart, to impurity. Their bodies would be dishonored among them. For they exchanged the truth of God for a lie and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Well, you know, right in that scripture could fit all of this. In one of the Hindu sacred scriptures, it describes the creation of the world. It says it happened this way. The god Narayana floated on a snake named Ananta in the water. From his belly button grew a lotus, in which the god Brahma was born. And out of his four mouths he created the egg of Brahma, which contains all the worlds. That's the creation. That's Hinduism. That's in there. The universe is born and reborn again and again. What about Hare Krishna? What about all these Krishna people? What about when you hear Krishna, what's that? I don't know. When I first heard it, I didn't know what to make of it. It sounded Jewish. You know, it was Hare Krishna. It was like Marty Goldberg, you meet Hare Krishna. I thought it was, at the first I thought this sounds very Jewish, Hare Krishna. But it wasn't. It's Hare Krishna. What is this really about? I'm going to tell you the root right now. Vishnu, the preserver god, was supposed to come into the flesh in various forms. The incarnations are called avatars. The god Vishnu became a fish once, he became a turtle, another time he became a pig, and he became a dwarf. In one incarnation, he became one named Krishna. And he was a violent person. He was mischievous, he committed fornication, he broke laws, he was responsible for the death of his family. He was eventually killed in a hunting accident. That's Hare Krishna. So in all this worship of consciousness of Hare Krishna, it's about someone who became a fish, a tortoise, a dwarf, and then became a violent, immoral person, and that's what that's all about. Chanting his name. Why would anyone want to chant this name? Is that enlightened, you know? You know what it's like? It's like Hinduism is sort of a Sears and Roebuck of ancient paganism. It's got its conglomerate of all sorts of paganism. Persian, Indo-European, Indian. In fact, you can find traces of all different pagan religions in there. Gods. In fact, there's a god named Dyaus, which is spoken of in the Hindu writings, in the Rig Veda. And it really, what that god is Zeus. They borrowed it from the Greeks. Zeus is in there too. It's all part of Hinduism. There are mythologies. There are gods and goddesses in this religion. Elephant-headed gods. You know, recently there was some I don't know, Hindu place in New Jersey where they have a statue of this elephant god, and they said it was performing a miracle. The elephant god was like drinking milk or something. They poured milk and it would drink it or something like that. There are monkey gods. There are female there are consorts. There's immorality. The gods and goddesses are totally immoral. They multiplied. Those three, they multiplied a lot. They ended up with millions of gods and goddesses, half men, half animals, river gods, place gods. One of the Hindu writings records that there are 33,000 gods. There's another census where it says there are 33 million gods. You know, Hindu pantheon, there's no Planned Parenthood in that. That's one instance. It just keeps going and going. Millions of American people are into transcendental meditation. Their indoctrination, the instructor reads in Sanskrit. When you translate it, it's the worship of the Lord Brahma, the son of Krishna. So they're actually saying worship to these gods. That's what a mantra. The word mantra means a hymn to a god. 1 Corinthians 8. 1 Corinthians 8 and verse 4. Therefore, concerning the eating of things sacrificed to idols, we know there is no such thing as an idol in the world, and there is no God but one. For even if there are so-called gods, whether in heaven or on earth, as indeed there are many gods and many lords, yet for us there is only one God, the Father, from whom are all things, and we exist for him, and one Lord, Yeshua, Jesus the Messiah, by whom are all things, and we exist through him. He was dealing with, back then, with this paganism. We're dealing with the same thing. It's amazing when I see Jewish people into this stuff. They don't realize how totally anti-Jewish all this stuff is, aside from being obviously anti the Bible. Tonight, I only wanted to focus on the beginning and the root of all these things. This is the root of it. We're going to get more into what it's about. But here are some key concepts of Hinduism and Eastern religion, which are clearly pagan at the root. In fact, they're the height of paganism. For instance, in fact, you go across the world and you look at all these pagan cultures, they will have this in common with Hinduism. It's showing that it's a pagan, very pagan, classic thing. The belief that man is the same as the universe, we are one with the universe, is a common pagan thought. That man is by essence the same as animals is also a pagan common thought. The practice of repetition, you remember what Messiah said about that? Don't be vain. Don't repeat vain repetition. I'm not stupid. I mean, don't just keep saying da 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 da. You know, what kind of God's that? Well, throughout the ancient world and ancient paganism, that was it. He says, don't be like the pagans who are saying the same thing again and again and again. It's mindless. A chant, a spell. The idea of the spirit of man entering other men or animals as a common thing, as reincarnation, is totally pagan. That God is the same as the world, is part of the world, pagan. The world is equal to God in that. If you worship the world, it's okay, because the world is God in Hinduism. The world is divine, pagan. The world is a dream. It's not really real. It's not really real. That's part of Hinduism too. That's part of all Eastern philosophy has that at the bottom, that this world is really not real. It's a dream. That the divine, the gods or the God is uncaring and capricious. He does whatever, he couldn't care less about this. He could be immoral, just does whatever he wants. That everything is a cycle. Whatever happens, happened before, it's going to happen again. Eternal, repeating. It's a wheel. Everything's a wheel. That's what karma is about. It's about being a wheel, goes around and around and around. Pagan. Fatalism, meaning that you can't really do a thing, change your part. Whatever you're born into, that's what you are. That's why in India they have people called the untouchables, and they're born into your thing based on reincarnation. You can't change it. This is what you are. Very dismal. Really, it's so peaceful. It's not. It's very dismal. If you get to the root of it, it's very dismal. Not only that, you think that something like this would at least be just an easygoing. It's not easygoing at all. It's a works-oriented faith. Totally works-oriented. You have to escape this karma. That's what it's about. And you do it by, you have to extinguish yourself. And it's all up to you. From the priests of Baal on Mount Carmel with Elijah, to the medicine men in Africa, to the shamans of every tribe and tongue, this is classic paganism. See, what happened is, the Greeks no longer worship Zeus. The Romans no longer worship Jupiter. The Egyptians no longer worship Osiris. The Indians of Latin America, the Celts of Ireland, the Germans of Western Europe, they don't worship their pagan gods. But Hinduism stands in the 20th century, and Eastern religion, as perhaps the largest repository of ancient mythology and paganism still practiced today. It's been homogenized, it's been pasteurized, it's been artificially sweetened, it's been repackaged, and it's sold in a more palatable form, but nevertheless it remains the repository of ancient paganism. Everything about New Age, all this stuff, nice little seminars, all is rooted in what I just said. It's all rooted there. That is what is at the root of all these things. Gods and goddesses. Another example. India is one of the most populous countries in the world. And yet the people of India, they're outnumbered by rats. Why? Part of the reason has to do with faith. In India, rats are considered holy because Hindu mythology holds them as divine, as the source of prosperity. So in the heart of a western Indian desert state called Rajasthan, there's an ancient temple dedicated to the worship of rats. Inside the temple are kept the holy rats. If any pilgrim accidentally steps on a holy rat and the rat dies, the pilgrim has to pay for a gold statue of the dead rat. This is not an exception to the Hindu faith. This is just part of it. In the 1960s, Batman was big, television show. Batman and Robin. Two men living together in a mansion was always questionable. Robin in blazing red, it was always a very questionable thing.
But another questionable thing about Robin was that he would always say, "Holy cow, Batman, holy cow." Well, what is it? Was Robin a Buddhist? What was this? Holy cow. Well, that is from Hinduism. Of course, you know, people starve in Hinduism and you know they will never touch a cow because a cow is a sacred god. And so this is no different from the sacred cow in Egypt that the Hebrews worshipped in the desert. But it goes even farther. One Hindu hymn goes like this: "We worship you, O cow, to your tail hair, your hooves, your form." It says, "The life of the world comes from the cow. Sunlight comes from its milk glands. The cow gives life to the God of life. The cow is immortal. The man who has knowledge may receive the cow. The cow is heaven, the cow is earth. The cow is Vishnu, Lord of life. Both gods and mortal men depend on the cow. The cow has become the universe." Do you get it? These are confused people. The cow is the universe? Receive the cow and it'll set you free? This is what you are embracing. This is the point of it. I didn't make this up. This is the root from which all this stuff came. So all these Eastern things, all these counterculture, all the New Age, all these nice little things can be traced to this, and through this movie helped by and large. But there was something about that movie that gave a hint of what was there that's overlooked by all the adherents of Eastern philosophy. The movie doesn't begin with meditation, or doesn't begin with a slick person giving a seminar on how to relax. It begins with a ceremony in which a Hindu priest is about to sacrifice a human being. When he discovers that the ring is missing, that's what the whole plot is about. The whole plot is about a Hindu priest seeking for a man to be a sacrifice. Because that is more real with the root of Hinduism than all the meditation. Because that was also part of Hinduism, human sacrifice. This is the root. A word for you believers: do not seek outside, you know. There's no hope. It says without God. It says once you were without God, I don't care if it's Eastern, I don't care what it is. This is just another example of, you know what, there's only one hope. There's only one real hope in this world. It's not this. Look at this. Is this hope? This is hopeless. This is hopeless, and so are so many. You go through the roots of all these different religions. It's hopeless. There's no faith that says, here is a hope, God is reaching down to you, but what you have. Give thanks for what you have, because it's so much better. This is what the world embraces, and look at it. What you've got, you know, sometimes it's like being married. You know, you can be married for so long. At one time you were infatuated with your spouse, and then after time goes on, you know, you're used to them and your eyes start to wander. So that can happen in the Lord too. You have the Lord is your bridegroom, and it's so easy to just start wondering and say, oh, but they have something. It doesn't matter, it could be this, it could be something else. But this is the root of this stuff. There's only one hope, folks. Be thankful for what you have in God. Be thankful. Once you were without hope, without God, and now you have hope. For you who are hearing this, who are listening to this tape, we cannot offer you here a host of gods. We cannot give you millions and millions of gods. But the truth is not a salad bar from which to choose reality. We cannot offer gods with elephant heads, or half human, half monkey gods, or gods who carry on promiscuous affairs or kill people, their family. There's only one. We can only offer you one God, and that is, though, the one and living true God. He does not play games. He is passionately pure. He is light. He doesn't hide from you. He seeks you. As a father seeks his child, he's seeking you right now. He doesn't engage in fantasy or mythology. He is real. He's more real than anything you've ever heard or seen. Paul wrote, you were once without hope. The characteristic of ancient paganism was hopelessness, man groping for something. And so today, to this day, modern man is also groping, has no sure hope. We offer you sure hope. We do not offer you a faith come upon by man, or a religion that developed over the centuries, that just kind of incorporated everything. It's not man reaching out for God, because that which is lost cannot find that which is not lost. But he who is not lost can reach out to you. A father must find his son. This is not some groping thing. There's only one way truth can come, and it's not by you trying to get it. It's by him coming to you. We offer you him who is beyond any image, beyond Shiva, beyond Vishnu, beyond the New Age, beyond all this stuff, who came to earth, the one true God who came to earth, who came in time and space, who entered history, who comes into our lives, who is not mythology. He's the one who is not lost. He is real. And we cannot offer you mythology, because the real Jesus is better than anything you've ever known. He's better than anything we've known. The real Jesus is better, higher, deeper than anything you could have known. The real Jesus is better than religion. He's more spiritual. He's more transcendent than transcendental meditation. He's more wonderful than any experience.